So, quick two topics that I want to go over. I might split these videos into two. But one thing, I am recovering from a little bit of a cold here. I really don't like to go in Atlanta when it comes to work. Well, part of the work that I do, which is in cybersecurity, but I feel like I went down to Atlanta on Wednesday. I feel like somebody gave me something there. If not, then maybe it was beforehand, but it's Friday now and I feel a little better, but last night, man, last night and the night before was crazy, man. But yeah, not really to hold this up too long. I had two things I was gonna really go in here about, but one of them I've mentioned a few times of the vehicle I'd like to move into as far as my next car, and that is the C8Z06. And what's funny enough, so I was driving from ATL on Wednesday. And I said, I was in this, bro, ATL traffic. I'm telling you, if for anybody that is in Atlanta or has to drive through it, you know what I'm talking about. The traffic is ridiculous, man. But went through the traffic halfway back home, and I said, you know what? Let me stop at the dealership, man, and take a look at this car because, and some people, I guess it depends on where you live, but me personally, I don't see C8s often, nor do I see much less Z06s. I think I've only seen like one or two, and that's if they're just driving by. So C8's a little bit more, but the Z06 barely. And I said, you know what? I plan to get this car next year at some point, preferably in the winter time, because that's the best time I hear to get a car. But if not, maybe summer or around my birthday time in a year. But yeah, I said, let me go to the dealership and take a look at this car for the first time. And went through it, got an understanding of what I'd be paying and everything, or unless I was gonna do it cash, what it would look like monthly payments if I was to put a specific amount down, and yeah, it gave me a better idea of what I'd be jumping into. And I know for me, while I could move forward with the vehicle right now, I'm waiting for specific specific things to be in place. Things is not the word I want to use, but specific things to be in place before I move forward with that. I want to have a, I want to be in a specific part of my life that I anticipate is coming up next year. I don't want to say it right here, but maybe it's already been implied a little bit if you do enough digging. But yeah, that's really what is I would say the wall that I'd want to move past before I pull the trigger. So at this moment, it's been more of what do I want this car to specifically look like? After I get it, how do I want to customize it to me to make it more me? As far as, the color is nice, but where do we want the logo? How do we want the car to really feel special and unique to me? Because some people will get a nice car and it's cool. Like everybody's different, but for me, I know I would want the car and to have something that's, whether it's subtle or a little bit more standoutish. I would want it to represent the brand and myself, so people can look at it and say that's his car. That's something related to what he has going on. You know what I'm saying? And again, everybody's different, but I always found that stuff fascinating every time when I saw somebody's car, tailored towards their brand. Some people can say, "Oh, well, now you got a driving billboard." You can do it good, and you can do it ugly, right? And that's subjective too. But I think the way I would want it, it wouldn't take away from the how the car looked. And yeah, man, like I've been saying before, the I knew for the past couple of months I wanted to move to that car, but even to now, I'm still surprised because last year, if you had asked me, it was still the BMW i8, and I moved away from the car, man. I wouldn't say I don't want it, but with some of the issues that I've seen some people have with it, I don't care too much about it's just a 3 cylinder and oh it's not that fast, bro. And oh, it's BMW's failed idea. They could have done so. They should have put a V8 in. Bro, I don't care about all that bullshit, right? Externally, the car looks beautiful. The car is beautiful to me, in my opinion. So that was really the foundation of why I wanted the car. I moved away from it because I want an engine. I want something that has a little bit more presence outside of just its looks. And I don't know, I didn't expect it to be the C8 and eventually moved towards that direction. Specifically the Z06 because of the flat plane V8. But anybody who's not really into cars or doesn't really know much, most people look at C8 and say it's the same damn thing. I went to the dealership. It's funny. Went to the dealership. This man didn't even this man didn't even know the damn difference until he corrected himself a few seconds later. I was actually gonna watch and see if he was even gonna tell the difference, but he didn't even know when he was saying the stats and all this stuff that I kind of already did my research on with the car. And he was saying all these things, and I was saying, okay, yeah, that's cool, that's cool. He didn't even know certain things about the car, which is it's funny, but you have so many different variants of that vehicle that it's easy, and it's not. There's little subtle things to make it look different, make them look different from each other. But you got a Stingray, the E-Ray, the Z06, the ZR1, the ZR1X. And they're talking about a Grand Tour. I can't remember what the other one is, but you have so many variants of the car. It's easy to confuse. So it was interesting talking to him about it. But yeah, that's where we are right now with that. Honestly, what inspired me or what made me say, I want to talk a little bit about this because I do reaction videos. I do reaction videos really when I want to. It's not something that's like a necessity. I need it to make some, extra money. It's a nice extra form of income. And I'm working on that to get that to where I would like it to be on a separate channel. But in order to be decent enough at something, you want to watch others. And at least that's been my approach. And I've seen plenty of videos of, people who who will get themselves into a car situation and they realize 2 months later, or they realize the following week, or maybe a year later, that this was the worst decision they've ever made. This was a terrible decision. And sometimes it might be that over a long period of time they were planning to make that purchase, but it's rare for me to see that. I don't think I've seen that at all. I'm just saying it's rare because I'd imagine maybe it's one or two or a few people that have done that. But the point that I'm making here is many times I've seen in these videos that people are moving into these huge financial commitments with zero plan whatsoever. And I'm thinking to myself, side note here, I know I said I was sick earlier. Sometimes it annoys me. You might hear me sniffle or something, but it's annoying because I can't really, my senses are kind of gone. If you get sick, sometimes your sense of smell and taste, it gets kind of messed up. So that's messing with me a little bit. But yeah, getting back to it. So you'll have people that'll make these decisions, and then let's say they wake up one morning, they say, I want to buy a car. I want to buy a car, as opposed to going to the internet, looking up, and maybe they do that. But as opposed to going to the internet, setting out a game plan and saying, this is how I'm going to get this car. Unless they can just flat out buy it in cash. And even if they can do that, that can lead to other issues too. But instead of setting up a plan to make sure this is what they really want, I see the common approach of, I want this, I'm gonna get up and go to the dealership and do it right now. And I'm sure we heard a million times, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that applies to so many different things in life. But there are, of course, times where you could argue. Sometimes you don't need a plan. Sometimes you just need to execute and take action. If there's specific things that you need to get done, or you decide you want to move a certain direction. But that, of course, doesn't apply to everything. I've always been on the side of in the middle of finding balance. And then there's going to be times where you're going to have to throw balance out the window and really lock in on something. But that's where I've always stood on. But these are one of those topics where in many cases, unless this is a very smaller percentage of your income and you could really just throw away cash, you got money to burn. I find it so silly that I see some of these reaction videos of people reacting to of different channels reacting to people who are either in way over their heads in a vehicle or some sort of commitment financially, and they're saying to themselves after they're underwater, they're saying, "Bro, what happened, bro? Like, what happened? How could this have happened? Or this is not what I expected it to be as far as the vehicle, or oh, I didn't know it was gonna be this bad." And then you get to listen more into the video and you see, oh yeah, it's you see some things that may have contributed to, like, okay, yeah, this kind of makes sense. Like, this person's credit score was like a 500, or this person this person has been underwater in 3 previous vehicles, and you're looking at the patterns and you're saying, okay, this starts to make sense. But it's crazy because I'll look at some people and I'm saying, bro, do you not learn from the first time? Even if you haven't learned from the even without the first time, that is something that I'm very surprised that isn't as common for people to, before they make a purchase or before they make a commitment like that, they don't have an idea if this is something they really want and if this is a commitment they really want to do. I have been planning, and perhaps over planning, that some would say. I've been planning and making sure I'm in the position to move forward with this vehicle. But not only that, making sure that it has what I want and making sure that I understand what are the pros and cons of moving forward with this. Every vehicle has pros and cons. We're using the topic of vehicles because that's what I was referring to. And then again, that's on the topic of something I'd want in the future, near future. So it's funny because you look at you try to take a look at all of the factors to make a decision on if you really do want to move forward with this. But it starts with the I want this, or I want to look at this. It doesn't start with I want this, I'm going to buy this immediately after. The next step isn't I'm going to buy it immediately after, unless you're in a position to do so. But most people aren't. So I find it really funny looking at that stuff. But overall, man, you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I would say that's the topic. And we're gonna put this into a blog post and send this out to the email list because I think many people find themselves in positions where you make a decision without actually thinking about what happens after that. You know, you hear stories about, and we're kind of veering into onto a different line here, but you hear stories about somebody says, "Oh, I just dropped everything and moved to Los Angeles and I became a superstar." Okay, cool. That it worked for that person. What about the hundreds and thousands of others that it didn't work for, right? That doesn't mean you don't do it. That doesn't mean you can't do it. But to put yourself in a better position, you don't even have to be saying to put myself in the best position, because sometimes you can fall into the becoming over analytical and then you start working against yourself and all that. But to put yourself in a much better position, what is your plan? What are you deciding to do? When you get there, what do you want to do? Do you have enough money to do that? What do you plan to do once you actually take action on that? And that's what it is, man. That's what it is. I've seen people around me. I've seen people on social media. I've seen all kinds of silly stories, and I'm saying this could have easily been prevented if you took a moment to not be as impulsive and think if this actually makes sense. Make a calculated decision. Take a calculated risk as opposed to always taking risks. Or you find some people, again, that maybe they do take calculated risks, but in most cases, they're taking calculated risks in the wrong things that they need to be doing. They're over analytical on the things that they don't need to be doing, and they're taking blatant risk, straight up risk on stuff that they actually should take a little bit more time to think about. And it's really silly. It's honestly silly to me, bro. But that was on my mind. That's the first thing, man. I was on my mind and wanted to talk about it, man. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail in most cases. Yes, balance is good. That's what I'm always an advocate of. And in some cases, there will be times where you're going to need to lock in. People talk about work-life balance. There are times when you're going to need to lock in on your business, There's time where you're going to need to lock in on something maybe that's happening in life, and work-life balance goes out the window, right? That's life. You're not always going to have things being cookie cutter or going straight forward and everything is as you expect. So there's a balance to everything. But in many cases, if you fail to plan or have some sort of base, not having some sort of basic plan and just shooting in the dark, unless you're prepared for both sides of both outcomes, it's silly work. It's silly work to me, man. It's silly work. But hey, we live in a time where you can go from 0 to a million overnight. And you've seen people do that left and right. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's whatever you feel like makes sense for you, right? I mean, I also I'm also for the side of, if you're not taking any risk, are you really living? Because it's about that too. It's about feeling a little bit of nervousness and having those questions, is this really going to work out? But at the same time, you want to make sure that if it doesn't work out, that you're not completely cooked, bro. That's really what it is. That is really what it is. But again, everybody's situation is different, right? So you do what makes sense for you. But if you have the choice, in many cases, it's good to think about it. I would say that's been my reality. It's good to take a moment, to take a few moments at the very minimum and think, is this something I can do? If this is something I can't do, how can I find a way to do this? If this is something I really want to do, what are the steps? At least think about it for a little bit, bro. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Because there's some decisions you got to make in a split second, and there's some decisions you got to move. But overall, in many cases, you have to at least think if this actually makes sense, and that will save you from a lot of the BS that we see that we see on these videos, that people just become a laughing stock because you're in a situation that you could have easily protected, but instead you thought you'd be one of the few that, I guess, somehow it worked out. Or yeah,